When I think of the word hood, I think of a person, a place, and perhaps even a thing. I am Sir Creepsta, and welcome to Muhlenberg County Ghost Stories from the Hood Shorts. So, sit back, relax, grab you some snacks, and enjoy the horrifying stories that I'm about to share with you. The year was 1975. Bobby was sitting in his room enjoying the NBA playoffs when his mother called for him to come to the kitchen and asked him if he'd go to the local neighborhood grocery store and grab her a small can of Bruton Snuff. Bobby quickly got off his bed, slid on his shoes, and off to the store he went. Bobby's heart instantly started pounding for just the mere thought of having to walk across the deadly tracks, cut through the infamous neighborhood of the North 1st Street Boys, before finally crossing 431 and arriving at his destination put the fear of God in him. After striking out running the entire way, Bobby arrived at the store, went straight to the counter, and asked Mrs. Wanda, the wife of the owner of the store, if she could get him a small can of Bruton Snuff, which was located on the middle shelf directly behind the counter. After paying for the snuff, Bobby gathered up the small bag that it was in and proceeded to make his way back home. Once he crossed the busy highway, it was only a matter of minutes before he would be back home. Bobby walked up the dark sidewalk and instantly stopped in his tracks, thinking that he had heard a noise from behind him. Seconds later, realizing that the sound was nothing, Bobby passed by a parked car on the curb. At that moment, a person jumped out from behind the car, resembling his dad, telling him to stop right there. But there was something off about this person. Frightened out of his wits, Bobby frantically dropped the bags and struck out running as fast as he could. Upon arriving home, the first person that Bobby ran into while bursting through the front door was his dear old dad. With his heart pounding like a drum, Bobby looked at his father in his eyes and asked him, "Dad, how did you get home so fast?" With a confused look upon his face about Bobby's question, his dad answered back, telling Bobby that he had been home all alone and was starting to worry about him, noticing the darkness had fallen. And nothing was ever mentioned after that day about the incident after that night. Bobby will grow up spending his entire life wondering just who the person was that he had mistaken on that frightful night to be his dad. But before I go any further, don't forget to smash that like button and treat it as if it was an unwanted bug and smash the hell out of it. Also, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon so that you can stay in the loop and be notified each and every time I drop a brand new video. The year is 2015. Rick had been asleep for several hours before having to get up and go to the bathroom to relieve himself. Unaware of the time of the morning it was, Rick was heading down the hallway back to his bedroom when he noticed the light on in the kitchen, when he knew for sure that a few hours earlier he had turned it off. As Rick went to turn off the light again, he glanced out the kitchen window and thought for a moment that he saw something in the distance in his backyard. Barely awake, Rick squinted his eyes, trying to get them to focus in on what he was looking at in his backyard. After looking at the motionless dark figure standing in the yard for nearly 3 or 4 minutes, Rick was still unable to make out who or what it was. All that Rick could make out was that it was a very large figure with seemingly glowing white eyes. Then out of nowhere, the large figure seemed to just disappear into the darkness. It was at that moment Rick glanced up at his clock and noticed the time. Once again, it was 3:15 a.m. Rick was beside himself, for this was the 3rd week in a row that he had awakened and experienced the same exact thing. which was a large, white-eyed figure standing motionless in his backyard at exactly 3:15 a.m. in the morning. Scared to death, out of his wits, Rick would finally reach out to a family member that he had ties to the church pastor in the town that she lived in. Upon speaking with the pastor and explaining to him the strange occurrences that had been happening at 3:15, he expressed the urgent need he was seeking to deal with his ongoing situation. Hearing the urgency in Rick's voice, the pastor finally agreed to pay a visit to his house to try and see what, if anything, he could do to help. After arriving and immediately sensing the negative energy present on Rick's property, the pastor immediately asked if he could go inside his house and do a complete cleansing. After an hour or so of performing the tasks needed, the pastor approached Rick, telling him that his home was clean and rid of any evil entities. Unfortunately, the cleansing didn't help, and Rick still, to this day, continues to deal with the paranormal activities attached to his house, land, and everything around him. And now he knows the true meaning of 3 a.m., that it refers to the dark side, also known as the witching hour. In 2022, two of the men had dropped by Craig's house to pay him a friendly visit. Upon arriving at his house, one of the guys went to the front door and knocked on it for a few minutes, but no one came to the door. About to pull out the driveway, Reese mentioned to the other man with him that Craig has a garage located in the back of his house, and he was possibly could be in it, and simply didn't hear the car pull into his driveway. So, Reese backed out of the drive and rode around to the driveway that led up to the garage. The garage door was pulled all the way down, but the man riding in the car immediately noticed something strange going on. As Reese pulled up to the garage, not saying a word to Reese at the time, the two of them exited out of the car, and Reese knocked on the garage door as he looked through a small window on the door and spotted Craig getting up off the couch and raising the garage door up to let them in. Once inside, the man with Reese asked Craig if he knew anyone that wore a Kangol hat. Shocked to hear this coming from the man's mouth that was Reese, Craig answered back saying, "Yes, I do. My old man did." He quickly followed that answer up by asking the man why. The man took in a deep breath and began to tell Craig that as they drove up to the garage, he noticed a tall, slender man wearing a Kangol looking through the glass window at him inside. The look on Craig's face said it all. He was in complete shock. The following night, Reese and the same man returned back at Craig's house, doing the exact same thing that they had did the night before. First, Reese went to the front door. Then, after getting no one to come to the door, he got into his car and drove around back. While driving up the driveway, the man with Reese shouted out, "There he is again," the same man from the night before. Reese looked at the man like he was crazy, asking him why he can't see the man too. The man answered Reese back, saying that all of his life he has been able to see things that other people couldn't for some reason, and that his grandmother had told him when he was a very young man that he had a special gift, and it was called a veil, meaning that he had the ability to see things in the paranormal realm. Craig would go on to tell Reese and his friend that although he couldn't see his old man, who had passed away many years before, he always felt the presence around him, especially when he was in the garage. It was late one night in the year 2010. Rick and his wife were sitting at the table having a late night social drink when all of a sudden Rick noticed something odd going on with his pet dog. Usually Rick's dog lay on the floor right next to him the entire time he was at the kitchen table. But for some reason, on this particular night, his dog stood at the front of the hallway leading to the kid's bedroom and just stared at the door, barking in the direction at it like crazy. Rick got up to try and see what his dog was barking at, but he saw nothing. So he told the dog to hush up, and he and his wife continued to have their drinks. Then the two of them finally went to the bed at around midnight. The following morning, Rick and his wife got up, put on their clothes, ate their breakfast, and off to work they went, the two of them, not thinking anything at all about the dog's odd behavior it had the night before. The day went by pretty quick, and before you knew it, it was time for Rick to get off and head back home. On his way home, Rick picked up another half pint of Dark Eyes vodka to have to sip on while he waited for his wife to get home from work. Rick pulled into his driveway, got out of his car, and went to open his back door. As soon as Rick opened the door, his dog shot out the house like a streak of lightning, running by him and out into the backyard so fast that it caused the leaves to fly beside him. About midway through his backyard, Rick's dog stopped, looked back at Rick one more time, and then struck out running until it was out of sight. Not knowing what to make of what had just happened, Rick went into his house thinking that his dog would return home shortly. It never happened. That would be the last time that Rick would ever see his dog again. Once inside the house, Rick turned to close the door and immediately saw all the claw marks that were at the base of the door, and he knew that his dog was the one that had made them. His dog had seen or heard something so frightening in the house that it apparently tried to scratch its way out of the house all day long. This sent bone-curdling chills all up and down Rick's body, and it was then that Rick finally realized that yes, his house was definitely haunted based on all of the other unexplained paranormal activity that he had, and his wife, and apparently his dog too, had been dealing with for quite some time. Rick still resides in the house and tells me all the time that he feels the evil lurking in his home on a daily basis. That's all for now, folks. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If so, be sure to check back with me soon. I'm Sir Creepsta, and until next time, stay terrified.